In episode 4, Toby ended up doing what he was told. He dragged Leanne back to the Turner residence. And the Turners have put her up in their attic, locked away, with Dorothy waking her up with food, but Leanne's confused, she's disoriented, she has no idea how she got there. And Dorothy fills her in that it was Toby who was the one who brought her there, and then asks her, where's Jericho? But Leanne says, I don't know. And Dorothy tells her, all right, well then you'll stay here until you remember. When she heads downstairs, Shawn is a bit concerned. He asks Dorothy what is she going to do if she has to go to the bathroom, but Dorothy was really nice. She left a bucket and some toilet paper. Bitch is crazy. She tells Shawn that he needs to be on board with this because it'll only work if they're united. She's taking the same precautions that people take when you're trying to get somebody off drugs. Isolate them, break them down, make them realize that they don't know what's best. The way that Dorothy sees it, heroin and religion are pretty much the same thing. She reminds Shawn that Leanne has been under the influence of a cult for pretty much her entire life. And because of that, she's probably pretty loyal to them. So they need to break that bond in order to get Leanne and tell them where Jericho is. Right before she leaves for work, Dorothy tells Shawn, you can't go up there without me. She'll manipulate you because you're not as strong as you like to think. And as she's heading out, the people that are going to fix the floor in the basement have arrived. And as they're digging up the basement floor to try to fix that pipe that burst or broke or whatever, Shawn is rummaging through the house looking for a key to the upstairs attic because he does want to see Leanne. Unfortunately, every key that he finds doesn't work. So he calls over Julian to discuss it, and Julian thinks that this is nuts. Julian says to Shawn, she could be telling Dorothy anything. And Shawn says, you don't think I know that? I can't get to her. If I could talk to her, maybe I could reason with her and she would tell me where Jericho is. She's not going to help Dorothy. You heard what she said to Toby about her. When Dorothy gets home from work that day, she brings up more food for Leanne and kind of scolds her for moving around some of the items in the attic. And then Leanne tells her that the family that she was staying with, the mother was really sick. Because of that, the family needs her. She tells Dorothy, I made a commitment to them, but Dorothy reminds her, yeah, you made a commitment to us too. You signed a contract. She tells Dorothy, though, I can't give Jericho to you. And Dorothy says, fine, then tell me where he is, but Leanne doesn't say anything. She heads downstairs to have dinner with Shawn, and she just can't believe that Leanne is acting like this, but Shawn reminds her, well, we never had her locked up in an attic before, pissing in a bucket. And Dorothy, whose mind is so warped, thinks that has nothing to do with it. It has to do with the fact that she's not with her cult. Shawn suggests that maybe they bring her down for a little bit in the evening, but Dorothy's not willing to do that until Leanne tells them where Jericho is. Everybody goes to bed that night, and at 2 a.m., Dorothy wakes up and starts massaging Leanne's hand. And it freaks Leanne the hell out. Dorothy tells Leanne you need to bring him back, but Leanne tells her, I told you already. I can't. And then Dorothy starts really squeezing Leanne's hand, and Leanne is begging her to stop because it's starting to hurt, and Dorothy just screams at her, I need him back. When she wakes up the next morning, her back is hurting. She just thinks it's from doing her indoor skydiving segment on the news the day before. But then she goes to grab breakfast from Shawn to bring it up to Leanne, and Shawn suggests, hey, maybe I bring it up to her. Maybe she said something to me that she won't say to you. But Dorothy is not about to break the, quote, strategy that they have. So she brings the food up to Leanne, and Leanne at this point is kind of hiding from her. She starts to try to make small talk with Leanne about eating breakfast as a kid, but after that little episode at 2 a.m., Leanne's not really in the speaking mood. She finally does break her silence, though, and tells Dorothy, I want to talk to Shawn, but Dorothy says, whatever you say to him, you can say to me. But Leanne just stays quiet, and Dorothy gets frustrated, but right before she leaves, she tells Leanne, you're not going to get between us. Me and Shawn are a family, something you clearly never had. And then she heads off to work. And while at work, Shawn, in the basement, is able to find a key to the attic. So he heads up there where Leanne is still in the corner, and he starts making a conversation with her about the mannequin that is in the attic that Leanne is kind of dressed up. The Turners called her Angela. She was in their apartment back in Rittenhouse until they moved into this new place. And after the mannequin talk, Shawn tells her, I didn't know that Dorothy was going to do that. Leanne asks him, why haven't you told her what she's done? And Shawn says, you don't know what it would do to Dorothy. If anybody wants to punish her, they can, because it wouldn't compare to what she would do to herself. Although Leanne's feeling is, Dorothy has what's coming to her. Shawn begs Leanne, tell me where he is. I'll give you anything you want. And Leanne's one request is to use the bathroom. She takes a shower, and as she's getting out, she notices that there are scissors on the sink next to a bunch of bloody gauze from Shawn's hand. When she walks out, we don't know if she has the scissors with her, but she does ask Shawn what happened to his hand, and he says it was an accident, although truth be told, he still can't feel it. When she finally goes back to the attic, though, Shawn has given her another present. It's her Bible back. Of course, Dorothy doesn't know any of this. And she comes home and waits until 2 a.m. again. This time, she's not as nice. She drags Leanne by the hair over in the corner, demanding to know where Jericho is, but Leanne doesn't say anything because she's gasping for air. And then like a psychopath, Dorothy then just casually gets back into bed. When she gets up the next morning, Shawn asks her, did you sleep okay? And she says, I get panicky at 2 a.m. Yeah, that's one way to put it. She admits, though, that it seems like her body is remembering something that her mind forgot. And the weirdest part is the fact that it's always at 2 a.m. She's also pretty convinced that whatever this feeling is, it has to do with Jericho. Shawn suggests that maybe they talk to Natalie to get her to prescribe her something, but Dorothy isn't about to get all pilled up. She then takes up Leanne's breakfast in the morning, and Leanne tells her, I used to pray for you, but not anymore. And Dorothy snaps back at her that it's actually a good thing because they don't allow, quote, superstition in the house anymore. She drops off the food, but before leaving, she yells at Leanne that she can make this stop anytime she wants. She then takes off for work, and when she does, Shawn makes Leanne a proper meal. And for whatever reason, as she's eating this bougie meal, Shawn starts to tell her about the struggles that they had to even have Jericho. And Leanne knows that he's doing it so that maybe Leanne will start to feel bad for Dorothy. And Shawn admits, I'll tell you whatever you want to hear as long as it means we can get him back. And Leanne asks, who? Shawn kind of looks at her and says, well, Jericho. And Leanne reminds him Jericho's dead. That night, as Shawn is making food, Julian comes over and slips something in the sauce to help Dorothy calm the hell down. Shawn then tells Julian, we can't let this go on much longer. Leanne is terrified up there. And she's not saying anything, and she probably won't, not as long as she's a prisoner. Julian tells Shawn, we're not the bad guys here. But Shawn says, oh, we're not? Then what are we? And Julian says we're the victims. But it doesn't seem like Shawn really agrees with that. And as Shawn is discussing this with Julian downstairs, upstairs in the attic, Leanne is swaying back and forth as she's praying from the Bible that she had on the same page that she wrote Shawn's name on. And that night, as they're eating dinner, Shawn's sense of taste finally comes back. Although once again at 2 a.m., Dorothy has another episode and attacks Leanne in her bed. And Shawn can sense when they wake up that Dorothy isn't sleeping right. He actually gives her something to help with the bags under her eyes. And after Dorothy takes it, she tells Shawn that she's pretty convinced that Leanne is just maybe days away from talking. She says that they're reprogramming her. And Shawn says, well, as long as that's all we're doing, I want to be sure we're not crossing any lines. And that's when Dorothy suddenly asks him, have you been up there? But he lies to her and says, of course I haven't. But when Dorothy heads off to work, Shawn heads upstairs to the attic, and this time with a charcuterie board. Might have said that wrong. Those kind of boards are above my pay grade. And as they're eating on the meats and cheeses, Leanne tells Shawn, I can't tell you where he is. But Shawn tells her, you don't have to. You can just bring him home. This conversation, though, is interrupted when Dorothy comes home early, and Leanne tells Shawn, you better not have her catch you up here. So he rushes downstairs where she's trying to stretch out her back because it still hurts from, quote, indoor skydiving. Now, that night, when everyone's going to bed, Leanne waits until 2 a.m. She puts that mannequin in her bed and puts a blanket over it so Dorothy thinks that it's Leanne in the bed, but it's not. And when Dorothy goes to attack Leanne, Leanne smashes her in the head with something and runs downstairs, although she's not able to get out of the house because of all the locks. And Dorothy, who's bleeding from the head, comes downstairs and asks Leanne, where is he? And Leanne tells her he's in a better place, surrounded by people that love him. We keep him warm and we keep him happy and we keep him safe from you. And Dorothy gets so angry that she smashes Leanne in the head. Now, shortly after that, Shawn ends up waking up in the middle of the night because his hand feels like it's on fire. He's got the sensation back. And after rebandaging the gauze up, he walks by the attic and notices the door is open. And when he heads upstairs, Leanne isn't there. So he heads downstairs to find Dorothy just kind of standing in the doorway with a bunch of mud on her. And she's not really answering his questions. But you can tell that she did something real bad because she's covered in dirt. And that real bad thing was burying Leanne alive. She was nice enough to leave her a breathing hose, but Shawn rushes down to the basement and digs Leanne up. And he pulls her out of that pit as Leanne is gasping for air. Dorothy has made her way downstairs, still having not said a word. Shawn is mortified, and he looks at Dorothy and says, what did you do? This is too far. But Dorothy gets real close to Leanne and says, nothing is too far. And as Shawn is trying to console a sobbing Leanne, Dorothy just walks back upstairs. After Dorothy goes to bed, Shawn lets Leanne shower up because she's covered in dirt and escorts her back up to the attic. And Shawn is still trying to defend his wife, saying, yeah, she just loves him that much. But Leanne changes the subject, saying, you can feel the pain in your hand again, can't you? That's why you woke up and found me? And it seems like that's something that Shawn never even considered as Leanne just heads off to bed. But downstairs, Dorothy is still having trouble sleeping. It might be because she just tried to murder somebody, or it might be because, as she said earlier, it's like her body is remembering something that her mind blocked out. And that's when suddenly she remembers over the summer standing over Jericho's crib. Because it was at 2 a.m. that she realized that she had left Jericho in the car. Thanks for checking this recap out. Consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video if you liked it. Hit thumbs down if you didn't. If you don't see the next episode in one of the end screens, not to worry, it'll be up shortly. Be nice in the comments section. If you heard a mistake, hey, mistakes happen. You don't have to point it out. You can just keep it moving. And check out my guys over at Scene Invaders. They're reacting live to each episode of Servant. It's not a recap. It's just their reaction to the episode. It's really good stuff. Check them out as well.